Alright, so today's video is actually going to be the review for Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. The Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1 review should be up on the page, and let's go ahead and get into the video here. Alright, so for the plot of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, I'm going to give it a 9 flat. Now, the reason I'm giving it a 9 flat is because, I gave it an 8.5 for the first season. I'm giving it a 9 for this because I feel like they did a lot better job of, building on what they did in Season 1. There goes somebody riding by. Yeah, I feel like they did a pretty good job of building on what they created in season 1, and the fights in it were phenomenal. The plot, I actually could follow what was kind of going on in the world, the full picture, and not just the part that they were showing me. Because in the first season they kind of just show you one side of kind of the conflict that's going on, but in this season they really show you all sides of it and how those sides play together. And I just thought it was really good. I know it's a really vague, generic thing. I'm trying to keep the spoilers down to a minimum here. Try not to. I'm probably not going to reveal any spoilers at all anyway. Okay, so on to acting, which in this case would be voice acting. You guys are going to love this because I'm giving it the same exact thing. I'm giving it a 9 flat. Voice acting took a slight step up from season 1. Actually, I'm feeling generous here. I think I'm gonna bump it to a 9.2. I'm gonna give it a 9.2 because I'll say this: Gato, Gojo, Toji, Fushiguro, Guro, there we go, and Sukuna killed it this season. And I think Jogo, he also did a really good job this season. And Yuji did, he did an okay job, but I feel like the other highlights were just basically everybody else. Yeah, so I feel like they did a phenomenal job with the voice acting this season. Kind of hard to really show that or really talk about it because it's really just about the emotion coming through. But I feel like you could really sense the emotion coming through all of the actors giving the performances, and Gato, kind of the lack of emotion coming through his performance. So I just feel like they did a really good job. Let me make sure I have that updated on the spreadsheet, actually. Okay, that did not update over there. There we go. Alright, we can go ahead and move on to dialogue. We're kind of getting through this pretty quick. The dialogue, I'm going to give it a 9 flat. I feel like they did a lot better job of not, they would talk about what was going on in the world, but the way they did it was a little bit more creative, nuanced, complex. It wasn't just, this is a blank ability, and this blank ability does blank against blank people. And it's when they do that, it kind of, takes me out of it a little bit, or not even takes me out of it, but it just makes it more about them educating me than it is about me actually taking in their dialogue. So I feel like they did a really good job of kind of going away from what they did in season 1, where it was just yap 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 yap. I feel like they did a pretty good job of actually making the dialogue meaningful. Riding by again. Okay. Cinematography. I'm gonna bump this too. Honestly, I'm gonna bump that as well. The cinematography. Oh wait, we did dialogue. Hold up. Dialogue was a 9 flat. Cinematography is a 9.1. This is a slight bump from season 1. Season 1 was an 8.9. Season 2 is a 9.1. I feel like just the way that everything looked was a lot crisper, a lot more vivid, I guess. And I feel like the action scenes were 10 times better visually, which is kind of crazy because season 1 visually they were still really good. But I feel like the action scenes in season 2 were kind of crazy. And yeah, really not much I can say about that. Pretty demanding season as far as what they were asking for from the visual effects, and I feel like they delivered. There's one fight. Not much of a spoiler because I'm not going to say anything about it. There's one fight with Sukuna at one point during the season, and it is one of the most visually stunning fight scenes I've ever seen in an anime. And that it's just again, fight scenes were good in season 1. They're definitely a step up in this, especially visually and literally as far as the fighting that happens in it. All right, so then we move on to our last subcategory before we get to the total and the bonus and all that. So that would be soundtrack. So I'm going to give it an 8.6 now. I went over in the last video that basically there's 2 different types of soundtracks when it comes to anime. There's the flowing throughout the episode, and then there's the intro-outro type. And this show is definitely an intro-outro type and less of a flowing through the episode type. I just feel like they had like a good intro this season, and the outro I don't really remember it, but I also don't really remember anything like during the season. I remember, I mean, it was like a good complimentary soundtrack, but it wasn't like, oh my god, this is such a good soundtrack. It was like, okay, this is fitting for the tone. So I gave it an 8.6. That's a point 0.4 drop from season one. I felt like the intros and outros of season one were really good. And I like really enjoyed them, and they're fine in this. They're just not like phenomenal. Okay, so then we move on to the bonus categories. So the bonus categories, we have immersion, that's not applicable here. We have comedy. This is the main change from last time. Last time they actually got a rating for comedy. They got a 8.2 for comedy. This time I decided to make the decision that I don't think it's applicable like for this season. I don't think a comedy rating would make sense here because that they're clearly not going for it. They're like, there's some moments where there's a few jokes thrown, but sometimes they're not even meant to be funny jokes. Sometimes it's just like a sadistic person making a joke. Yeah, so I don't know. There are some like good jokes in it, but there's not nearly enough for me to even feel like I could give it a rating. So then we move on to world building. World building, I would give a 9.6. The first season they did a really good job of like building up the world from the ground up and like teaching you about something that you completely didn't know about. In the second season, the reason I've gone from a 9.6 or from a 9.3 in season one to a 9.6 in season two is because I felt like they took what they built in season one and built on it in like a extreme way. I feel like I learned a lot more about the world in this season compared to the first season. In the first season, I still learned a ton about the world. So I feel like they did a really good job building up the world in this season. I know I'm literally using the literal verbiage here, but they did a very good job as far as letting you know. They kind of they show you both sides. They show you numerous amounts of characters throughout the season, and they show you different locations. They show you like different time periods. They go in the past and show people's like previous like their backstory and stuff like that. And I just feel like all of that combines to really let you know exactly what the world is and what it would feel like to live in that world. So then we move on to the characters. Again, kind of part of the world building because it shows how like broad your scope is. If you include more characters, that means you're probably showing more perspectives and building the world more. But I gave it a 9.6. That's a 0.4 rise from season one. I feel like basically what they did is they took all the characters they introduced you to in season one. And in season one, you don't really know them, so it's like, wow, this is a lot of characters. They all seem to kind of have a little bit of depth to them. But in this season, they make their lives meaningful, and they make their individual fight scenes like feel like they have weight to them. They're definitely not afraid to kill off characters, which makes the individual character arc for basically everybody in the show feel more meaningful because there's stakes for it. There's times where you feel like anybody on the screen could die at any point, including all of the main characters, all the main villains. You feel like it's possible, and I really like it when a show creates that possibility. And then the fights for this season, for this season, I give it a 9.5. That's again a 0.4 rise from season one. The fights in this are some of the best I've seen in any anime, period. Definitely, I think, up there with Attack on Titan. They might even be better than Attack on Titan because the amount of effort that goes into these compared to Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan is more like traditional warfare. This is more about like magic and sorcery and like cursed spirits and stuff like that. And I feel like these are more demanding fight scenes, and the fact that they pull them off after having to teach you how everything works is really good. So yeah, 9.5 for fights. And for the final rating, I gave it a 9.1. That is a 0.2 rise, no 0.3 rise from season one. I just feel like they pretty much topped season one in every single category but soundtrack, which is literally what I have them rated as doing. So yeah, I feel like outside of the soundtrack, which is again not that big of a deal as far as like animes go, especially fighting animes. So yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it. 9.1, pretty solid rating. One of the better animes I've seen, period. Still not the best. I would say it's maybe in the top 5. I really enjoyed it. But Death Note's definitely my favorite. And then, I definitely think Attack on Titan is after that. Attack on Titan is, like, better than Death Note, but it's, like, not my favorite because it's, a little bit longer. And I just kind of like the world of Death Note more than I like the world of Attack on Titan. But Attack on Titan's just good all around. And then there's Naruto. And then I'd say Jujutsu Kaisen's in that next tier, kind of with like Vinland Saga, like Edge Runners, depending on if you count Avatar: Last Airbender as a anime or a cartoon. Anime is just Japanese cartoons, so I would consider Avatar: Last Airbender technically anime. So I would say it's kind of in that range, but yeah, definitely the second season. The second season was very, very good. Yeah, so 9-1 for Jujutsu Kaisen. I can go ahead and put that down as the total rating. I don't know why I'm bothering to do it at the end of the video, as it's about to end here. But yeah, 9-1 for Jujutsu Kaisen. They pretty much killed it on every category but the soundtrack. And again, I don't even really think they were too worried about that. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and peace.